No, same to you, deadbeat. Kick rocks. Ah! Can we get better screening of these calls? I need a breather for a moment. I'll use it as an opportunity to give those just tuning in a very cold welcome to Necro Radio. Tonight in the studio, we are taking phone calls. Yay. Since our phone lines are typically clogged by the recently deceased, the conversation is usually not that lively. These sad stiffs are always so confused as to where they are or what they are, and ain't it just my luck? I get the awful honor of answering every single question that they have. And right on cue, another call. Oh boy. You're on the air with DJ Drybones, live on Necro Radio. Talk to me.
Oh, hey there. Now,
Hello.
I keep trying to change my car radio, but all I keep getting is this darn station. Anyway, since I hear you're taking calls, I figure I'd tell you what's going on and maybe you can help.
Okay.
I was just driving my car, and suddenly I see these real bright headlights coming straight at me. But every time I swerve out of the way, there's just another set of lights coming at me.
That's because you're
I have
dead.
tried even pulling my car over to the side of the road, but every time I try to get out of my car, I just pop right back in it.
That's because you're dead.
No, I don't think I'm in a dead zone. I mean, I hear you just fine.
Love of God.
Anyway, do you think I'm getting abducted maybe? You know, like aliens?
It's not aliens.
If I just sit here,
Ma'am.
you don't think the aliens will take me, do you?
Ma'am.
I tell you, these gut dang lights are so darn bright.
Go
Hold
into
on.
the
I know I
light.
have some sunglasses around here somewhere.
Ma'am, you're supposed to go into the light.
No, I'm not at a stoplight. I just stopped. Look, I just stopped my car
Yeah, I
on
don't
the
give a
side
rat's
of the
ass.
road.
Next caller. You're on the air live on Necro Radio. What's on your mind? All right, that's it. Nope, I'm done with the calls. No, I don't want to do it anymore. Let's get into tonight's stories. Let's see, what have we here? Our first story tonight is a tale as old as time. A story of a boy and his shrink. This drama is dubbed Shadow Puppet.
So tell me, Jeffrey, why are we meeting for the first time in the dark?
My new therapist asks from the darkness in front of me. I shift uncomfortably in my seat. I had insisted on a meeting in total darkness. All the curtains drawn and all the lights off. How do I best answer this valid question? I don't know where to begin,
We can get there eventually.
he said.
Why don't you start with a little about yourself?
That seemed easier. If I could build my way up to it, maybe I wouldn't sound so crazy. Well, I've done therapy on and off every few years or so. I know I've always suffered from manic episodes. Big mood swings, outbursts of people I know, pushing people away when they get too close. I sorted that out years ago in therapy. I'm afraid of being alone, and I self-sabotage to fulfill that fear.
That's great to hear. Acknowledging and accepting that is the first step in treatment.
He says from across the room, scribbling over on a notepad. Yeah, but what I've been experiencing lately, it's completely different. More scribbling, but no response, so I go on. I've never seen things,
You're seeing things?
he asks calmly. Yes, well, no. I mean, I hope I'm not. I hope it's in my head, but also I don't. Do you know what I mean? I'm afraid to say what it is. don't know how crazy it would sound.
Talk to me about it.
He says. I twiddle my thumbs and press my eyes shut, wincing at even the thought of voicing it aloud. It's so hard to say.
Take your time. There's no rush at all.
For the past few weeks, I've felt like something is wrong with my shadow. There's no response from the darkness. I could only imagine him leaning forward, his face scowling with judgment. So I continue. Like it's a separate being from me.
Elaborate.
He urges. I swear that I'll see it do things. Like if I'm walking along the street and sun casted on the wall next to me, I'll see it do something under the corner of my eye. Something I'm not doing.
An example?
Like a turn of its head to look at me. Or make an obscene hand gesture.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey. I'm just imagining it. That would be quite the experience. That was unprofessional of me. I apologize. Please continue.
Look, Doctor, I know this sounds crazy. That's what I'm telling you. This is new. I've known the issues I've dealt with my entire life. I'm familiar with those. But hallucinations? Or whatever this is? Look, I could just ignore it. I wouldn't be here if things hadn't escalated. There's a silence in the dark. His interest is piqued now. Last week, it got worse. It was no longer just out of the corner of my eye. I would see it cast right in front of me, and it was actively not doing what I was. Like I was cutting vegetables at my island counter, right? And my shadow was just standing completely still against the fridge across from me, like it should be, but knife in hand and arms at its side. And it was just staring at me. I couldn't continue talking just yet. I needed some kind of validation that this wasn't that big of a deal from him, that this was documented or a normal experience some people had. So I waited for him to speak.
This is fascinating, Jeffrey. Your pause makes me feel like there's more to tell. Is there?
His answer only heightened my anxiety over the whole situation, but I knew I had to get to what happened next if I had any hope for help. Yes. 2 days ago, I had a date over. We'd been seeing each other for about a month or so. It was starting to get more serious, and I was finally feeling good for once in my life, like I'd be able to hold on to a relationship. I was cooking her dinner. She sat on the couch trying to find something for us to watch together. I'd put the meal in the oven to cook, and I turn and I see my shadow on the fridge again. Standing there. Staring back at me. And it pointed to my date on the couch, and then to the knife block on the counter. And then it drew a finger across its throat. I paused in my story and bowled over in the dark, rocking back and forth a bit on the couch. There was no response or scribbling from the dark, so I went on. I shook my head silently to it, but Doc, it made me reach for the knife. Like I was the shadow and not it. It reached for it, and my hand followed. I heard him breathing across from me. I could only imagine he was thinking the worst.
Jeffrey,
He began.
what did you do?
I screamed out no, of course, and it stopped. I dropped the knife and screamed at my date to run, to get out and never come back. I've sabotaged every relationship I've ever had for a million other reasons, but never because I was afraid I'd physically harm the person. Doc, I know this sounds crazy, but I am terrified. That's why we're in the dark. If I see it again, I'm so terrified it's going to make me do something horrible, that it's going to make me hurt someone. Please help me. Tell me what to do. I wait in the silence, my breathing heavy, praying that there would be some kind of miracle drug that would make this all go away.
Jeffrey,
he began.
You're not crazy. The mind is a mysterious thing. There are many reasons why a trauma or buried issue can manifest themselves in such a way. You are not broken, and I know I can help you. But Jeffrey, first, I need you to do something for me.
I nod in the dark, more so acknowledging to myself that I would do anything to make this go away.
Just behind you on the wall, to your right, there is a light switch. I would like for you to reach over there and flip it on.
I shake my head, a gesture again lost in the darkness. I'm afraid, Doc. I'm so afraid.
There is nothing to fear. Now I know that you know this isn't a physical issue. It's psychological, in your mind. Turning the lights on and seeing your shadow be just a shadow is the first step into solving this problem.
I know he's right, but a knot twists in my stomach. My palms sweat.
You can do it, Jeffrey. Just over your shoulder there.
I nod to myself and slightly turn to my right. I place a palm on the wall behind the couch and slide it around until the cold plastic corner of the switch faceplate makes me freeze.
That's it. Almost there.
I inhale deep, slide my hand down the plate and over to the downturned switch. I hook my finger underneath it and exhale. I flick the switch up. The light is dim, but still blinding initially. Having been sat in the dark for so long, I stare at my feet and blink several times, waiting for my eyes to adjust. Finally, I look up and follow the legs of my shadow drifting away from my feet, up to look at my therapist across the coffee table. And there is no one. Just my shadow, mimicking my sitting. I suddenly snap to a stiff position. My shadow waves silently at me, and my hand mirrors.
Good.
I find myself unable to speak. I'm helpless to move on my own. I have become the man cast by my shadow.
This wasn't how I wanted things, Jeffrey.
My shadow begins to speak to me, casually moving its hands conversationally that I unwillingly mime back.
I was hoping we could be partners. There were such beautiful things to experience together. But, unfortunately, after today's session, I realize that's just not possible.
My shadow sighs and hangs its head in defeat, which I mimic, staring wide-eyed at the floor, cold in fear. I look back up at it and we both shrug softly. My shadow looks to its left, and I look to my right. My kitchen knife sits on the end table beside the lamp. Sweat beads on my forehead. Every internal thought screams in protest as my hand reaches for it. My fingers close around the wooden handle, and as my gaze turns back to my shadow, I bring the blade to my throat. It mirrors me from across the small room. I try to plead in my mute state with my wide eyes for him to stop, but there are no eyes to meet across from me. Just an empty, dark shape. I feel the cold steel press to my skin, and it bobs with the hammering of my heartbeat. My shadow sighs again and simply says,
I think it's best now if we just go our separate ways.
Any way you slice it, it's never easy cutting someone out of your life. Ha ha! You get it? 'Cause of the knife. All this talk of shadow puppets reminds me of one of my favorite bedtime stories, which, if I remember right, is right here. This old yarn spins around a young girl and the advice given from her macabre mentor. This classic is called Old Natty Witch. Look,
Old Natty said to the girl on the floor.
this is how it is done.
She twists her bony fingers in and out of one another, almost tying them in knots. It doesn't look like much until she dances her tangled hands in front of the flickering candle on the floor. It casts a hopping shadow up and down, across the hallway wall, and then back again.
A rabbit!
The girl cried out in delight.
Very good.
Says Old Natty Witch.
Now you try.
The girl fumbles with her small stubby fingers, but can't seem to form much more than a shadow blob with a few spindly legs poking out in all directions.
I made a spider!
She exclaims excitedly.
You will get the hang of it, my child.
Natty says, reassuring her.
But very good.
Oh, please show me another, please!
The girl begs.
Hush, hush now. We mustn't wake your mother and father.
Old Natty says, already forming the next spectacle with her knobby hands.
How about this one? Any guesses?
Her hands slyly creep along the wall, slowly, and then pounce on nothing at all.
A fox!
The girl spouts in her excitement, trying her hardest to use hushed tones, just like Natty had instructed.
Very good, child.
Old Natty says, patting the young girl's head.
Well, I suppose that is enough for now. It is time for bed. I must be off.
Oh, do you have to?
The girl pouts, her voice solemn with disappointment.
Oh, I must, my child. But you do remember our one rule now, don't you?
Yes, Natty.
The girl straightens up tall and recites the one rule, as one would their nightly prayers.
I mustn't go looking in the dead of night, for things might be creeping that are just out of sight. Some creeping things go hungry, so they just want to bite. So I mustn't go looking and stay safe in the light.
With this, Old Natty gave a nod, got down on all fours, and crawled back through the hole in the wall just under the stairs, from which she would appear from time to time. And just like that, the girl was left alone, with the dancing light of the flickering candle keeping her warm and safe. The girl awoke some time later. She had fallen asleep right where she had been sitting. She must have been more tired than she had thought. The candle was still lit, but now burned low in its holder on the floor beside her. Though the light was dim, it still cast shadows down the long stretches of wall until they dissolved into the darkness of the hallway beyond. The girl rubbed her eyes and squinted through her sleepy haze, and thought she heard something strange. It sounded like scratching behind the walls.
Natty, is that you?
But the hole in the wall under the stairs was quiet. Nothing stirred within. Her attention was suddenly snatched up by something moving along the corridor wall. The hopping rabbit was back. The shadow puppet bounced silently back and forth. The girl thought this quite odd, since there were no hands to form the hopping shadow rabbit. It moved and looked like old Natty's rabbit, but there were no Natty hands to cast the shadow. This realization frightened the young girl. The rabbit hopped erratically, as if to get the girl to follow it, and then disappeared into the black. The girl, gathering her courage, picked up the candle and plunged into the darkness in pursuit. She was very glad for the light of the candle. If not for the light, it would be very dark indeed, and no light would mean no cast shadows. This would make it impossible to follow the rabbit. The further she went, the more the hallway seemed to stretch on forever, almost like it was growing in length. She thought to herself how that couldn't be possible. But as she continued down the hall, one hand sliding on the wall, she realized the hallway was indeed longer than usual. She'd walked this hall so many times. She was sure of it now. The rabbit moved swiftly and silently, darting this way and that until it came to the edge of an old set of stairs. It turned to her and hopped one more time, lingered a moment on the threshold, and then it was gone, down the steps into the darkness. The girl had never seen these stairs before. Her home had no basement or cellar, yet here, inexplicably, was a set of rotting old stairs, descending into darkness.
I mustn't go looking,
the girl whispered aloud to herself. The sound of her own voice made her feel just how silent the house really was tonight. Curiosity drove her courage onward, and she plunged into the darkness once again. The stairs, just like the hallway, went on and on. Deeper and deeper downwards she went. Down the creaky old stairs that felt like they would buckle and break even under her light footfalls. After what felt like ages, finally her foot touched the soft dirt at the bottom. By the time the girl realized her courage was failing, it was too late. She had arrived in this mysterious basement. She instantly and deeply regretted following the hopping rabbit. The basement air was thick and weighed down on her like a heavy blanket. However, this was no comforting feeling. Nothing at all like the blankets her mother tucked her under each night in bed. Which was where she knew she should be right this very moment. Old Natty had warned her, and she didn't listen. She had disregarded the first part of the one rule, and now she was alone, and the light was fading as the candle in her hand burned lower and lower. The basement was small and had no doors. She shuffled forward in the dirt, tracing the walls with her eyes, trying to find any semblance of the rabbit that could lead her out of this horrible place. At the far end of the long room, she finally spotted the rabbit, at the base of the wall in the damp corner. It was crippled in a small heap and was no longer hopping. A small knot began to fester in the pit of the young girl's stomach upon seeing the dead rabbit. Without the rabbit, she was truly alone. It was then that she noticed, almost lost in the dim light of the flickering candle, that the shadow fox sat beside the rabbit. The fox's attention didn't seem to be on his fresh kill, but staring directly at the girl. Fear flooded her, freezing her where she stood. The pit in her stomach dropped even more, as she wished more than anything that she had heeded the rule of old Natty Witch. Old Natty did know best. Then, all at once, the fox started to shift back and forth, fading in and out, slowly at first, and then began to sprout more shadowy appendages. Shadow fingers, not unlike those that belonged to old Natty, began to crawl from the fox's open mouth on the wall, and quickly overtook its shadowy form. It kept growing and shifting with what looked like a giant mess of spider legs. The tangled limbs became a shadow that the girl could not recognize, for she had seen nothing like this monstrosity before. Nothing she had seen had this wicked, twisted frame. Then the shadow puppet did something unimaginable. It stepped out from the wall and onto the dirt floor right in front of the girl. The giant looming shadow creature dwarfed the small girl below it. She knew she should run, but could not. Her feet would not move. Fear filled her entire being. The creature inched forward. Its bony shadow fingers swam over one another, tangling with each other as they reached out for her. Its shadowy tendrils writhed with each sluggish step. Then it was inches from her, and suddenly, where it seemed a mouth should be, knobby black fingers parted, opening agape as if to swallow her whole. The fingers dangled like teeth in its maw that was impossibly black, like staring into a void where no light could reflect. The girl thought that she was done for. Made to share the same fate as the hopping rabbit when the thing was merely the form of a fox. The girl opened her mouth and turned to scream, but no sound escaped. All was eerily silent in this moment of strange terror. It was in that moment, somehow, that the girl knew what she must do, though it terrified her to the core. She formed an O shape with her lips and mustered the smallest intake of breath, holding it for a brief moment as the shadowy maw encompassed her vision. Then she puffed a small blow of air, and the warm flame of the candle was snuffed out. With no light, there could be no cast shadows. The girl was left alone in the dark, though this dark was oddly less than before. The girl groped in the dark at the walls for guidance. She led with her palms for a long while, tracing her path back up the stairs that didn't belong, and through the stretches of hallway that shrunk to normalcy behind her. She eventually found her bedroom door. She reached out and turned the knob, and it creaked open. Then she crawled into the bed, softly illuminated in the moonlight, and tucked herself back in. She lay awake for some time and thought for a while about the happenings of that night. The images repeated over and over, and she recalled the strange terrors it had brought with it. Somehow, alone in her room, a feeling of comfort and resolution began to rise within her.
Maybe the darkness isn't so bad after all.
She puzzled aloud in a whisper. The girl was sure that old Natty Witch would agree with that statement. She would tell her all about it the next time she surfaced from the hole to visit.
See, kiddies, the darkness keeps you from seeing the ghoulies and goblins that creep under your bed. Much less scary. You know, that story got me over my fear of the dark as a young lad. Strangely enough, it was replaced by a phobia of the elderly. I don't know. Some things will always remain a mystery. Oh, and the call light is back on. Are you kidding me? I can't just ignore this, Jerry. Did you hear the last guy? Oh. You're on the air live on Necro Radio. What do you want?
Dustin Ware, the last